I overheard the guy I was crazy about saying that my chasing him gave him major street cred and that he never intended to be with me. Heartbroken, I walked away, never imagining the man who had been so kind and attentive to me could be such a jerk. It wasn't until later that I finally understood the truth. There was always a hidden reason why he seemed to show up whenever I felt helpless and desperate. I was just about to push open the private room door when I heard James, the guy I liked, talking about me with his friends. "Seriously, when are you going to finally break it to Olivia? You already have a girlfriend, Lily." That was Marcus's voice, teasing. "The girl's been chasing you for 4 years, bro." James chuckled. The crisp clink of ice against glass mixed with his words. "Break what to her? Isn't this working out great right now? So you're just going to string her along?" "String her along?" James's voice suddenly spiked, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "Marcus, that's a lame way to put it. She's from a big company family, driving a luxury car to chase me. Isn't that a status symbol? Besides," he drew out the word deliberately, "Andrew just graduated from military academy, right? When he finds out his little protege is wrapped around my finger, his reaction is going to be epic." The laughter drifting out from the crack in the door sounded like shards of glass, piercing my eardrums. I clutched the gift box, a limited edition fountain pen, that I'd bought for James. It was at the very top of the birthday wish list he'd tagged me in on social media just last week. As I froze like a statue, a warm hand suddenly gripped my elbow from behind. I spun around and found myself staring into a pair of deep brown eyes. It was Andrew. He was in his military academy uniform, the silver star on his shoulder flashing coldly in the shadows. His buzz cut was shorter than it had been in high school, and his jawline was sharp as a knife. The academy ring on his left ring finger brushed my wrist, the cold touch sending a shiver down my spine. "You heard it?" he asked, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed the rest of his sentence. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Tears splattered onto his gleaming dress shoes first. His throat moved again. He didn't say anything more, but with an undeniable grip, he took my wrist and headed toward the elevator lobby to take me away. Just then, the private room door unceremoniously clicked open. James poked his head out. When he saw our hands clasped together, the champagne glass in his hand cracked. But Andrew didn't even look back. Just as the elevator doors were closing, he softly stroked the palm of my hand with his thumb. Falling for James had been easy. That winter in sophomore year of high school, I lost my wallet at the mall and didn't even have money for the subway. I posted a desperate, self-deprecating note on Instagram. James called me. My shoes were already soaked from the melted snow, and the sound of my chattering teeth almost drowned out the dial tone. "Where are you?" "I'm coming to find you." 30 minutes later, James appeared in the revolving door, fine snow dusting his coat. He handed me a hot cocoa. "Let's go eat first, my treat." The pasta at that restaurant was expensive. He watched me devour it, laughing as he sprinkled the truffles from his plate onto mine. "Slow down. No one's taking it away from you." He would wait for me on the steps with an umbrella in a downpour to walk me home. He would slip painkillers into my locker when I had bad cramps. I wrote all of this on social media, and Andrew's likes were always the first to appear. It was strange. Did the military academy have that much free time? It wasn't until graduation night, when I confessed my feelings in my formal dress on the field, that James just smiled and ruffled my hair. "Olivia, you're a great girl, but let's just be friends." But I never gave up following him. As the elevator descended, the mirrored wall reflected our messy state. My makeup was smeared, making me look like a raccoon, and his suit jacket was stained with my tears. Andrew pressed the B3 parking garage button. The metal panel reflected his tightly pressed, thin lips. "Going home?" I shook my head, burying my face in his shoulder, which smelled faintly of gunpowder. "Let's get a drink." Without a word, he changed the button to B1. He took me to that underground bar. The alcohol burned my throat. I hunched over the counter, sobbing uncontrollably. How could he do this to me? "What's wrong with me?" Andrew didn't say anything. He just tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingertip brushing the small mole on my lobe. His movement was controlled, yet his fingertip trembled slightly. When I finally cried myself out, he spoke in a steady tone. "There's nothing wrong with you. He wasn't good enough for you. But he used to be so good to me." I suddenly looked up, the alcohol giving me the courage to ask the question that had bothered me for 7 years. But why did he stop being so nice later? He wouldn't pick me up in the rain anymore, and he stopped remembering that I don't like jalapeno chips. Andrew's eyes widened, then he asked with difficulty, Did you only like him because he did those things for you? I nodded without hesitation. He was genuinely gentle and thoughtful. I mean, he used to be. Andrew seemed to whisper something into my ear, a lot of things, but I couldn't remember any of it. That night, I got completely wasted. I woke up in a hotel suite. Andrew was next to me. He was already awake, propping his head up to watch me. Years of training had made his abs and chest overly firm and perfect. Our nakedness and my sore body reminded me of the crazy things that had happened the night before. He watched my eyes slowly widen. I stammered, yesterday, I was drunk. I don't remember what happened. We shouldn't have. I mean, we've been friends since we were kids. You're my big brother. He suddenly leaned in and hugged my waist tightly. Brother? That's not what you said last night. You said you liked me, that you wanted to be with me. You're the one who invited me here. I was even more shocked, but I still trusted Andrew's character. There must be a misunderstanding. I didn't. His expression became hurt. Really? You truly don't remember? You were very passionate last night. You hugged me so tight, and you told me I was great. His hot breath on my neck made me feel guilty, so I tried to smooth things over. Maybe I do remember, he suddenly kissed me, long and lingering. I involuntarily closed my eyes. Perhaps it awakened a physical memory, because my heart began to race, and I felt a desire for him. Sensing my response, his gaze deepened. He asked hoarsely, "How about we take a shower first?" He carried me to the bathroom. I had never taken such a long shower. From the bathroom to the bed, we reveled in each other's bodies while completely sober. He was incredibly gentle with me, yet extremely seductive. I completely surrendered to his touch and rhythm. It was a blissful experience I had never known. I couldn't help but think, that's military stamina for you. I woke up again late that afternoon. For a week after Andrew took me home, I was like a scared ostrich, burying my head in the sand. His texts piled up at the top of my inbox, from "Are you awake?" to "Need me to bring breakfast?" and finally stopping at "I'm downstairs." I set my social media to private. James's follow requests were like a ticking time bomb, the red notification number glaring and unsettling. Friday night, my best friend Chloe took me to a gallery opening in Soho. Right at the entrance, I ran into the last person I wanted to see, Andrew. He was in casual clothes, a black hoodie and cargo pants, less of the military sharp edge and more of a gentle guy next door. But in his hand was a box of macarons from the French pastry shop I'd casually mentioned wanting to try last week. Avoiding me? He got straight to the point, his tone as calm as if he were discussing the weather. I clutched Chloe's arm and recoiled. Chloe wisely found an excuse to slip away, leaving us face to face. No, I lied, my eyes darting past him to James. He was here, too, his arm linked with a woman who must be Lily, the girlfriend Marcus had mentioned. They were laughing and talking by a painting. Andrew followed my gaze, and his jaw instantly tightened. Let's talk inside. He took my wrist without asking, pulling me through the crowd toward the terrace. The evening breeze carried the coolness of early fall, scattering the scent of my perfume but not the warmth of his palm. Don't you want to know what happened that night you were drunk? He suddenly asked. My face flushed again. I don't remember. What else could it be? We just slept together. He looked at me in silence for a long moment before saying, then let me help you remember. That night, I told you that the Instagram post you made after losing your wallet in high school. His voice was slightly scattered by the wind. I was the one who saw it and called James. I froze. The time he picked you up in the rain? I agreed to get him the cigars he wanted in exchange for him going. The painkillers in your locker? I asked him to put them there. Even that dinner he treated you to? I wired him the money. Andrew's Adam's apple bobbed. With every word he spoke, my heart skipped a beat. I was in the military academy pre-service back then and had weekend training, so I could only ask him to look out for you. So that was it. Everything made sense. After I thought I'd fallen in love with James, I posted many sweet moments online. Andrew stopped instantly liking them at some point, and James grew less attentive. That's because his thoughtfulness all came from Andrew's direction. James never genuinely intended to be kind to me. My 4 years of obsession felt ridiculous. The terrace door was pushed open, and James's voice, thick with alcohol, cut through the air. "Andrew, what are you telling my girlfriend?" "Your girlfriend?" Andrew sneered, pulling me behind him. "You don't rate her." James's face instantly flushed red. Lily shrieked and tried to grab my hair, but Andrew precisely grabbed her wrist. "I'm warning you, stay away from her." His eyes were cold, like he was sighting a target on a shooting range. "Or I'll do anything." Guests in the gallery turned their heads. Flash bulbs flickered in the shadows. I suddenly remembered James saying, "Having her chase me gives me face." It turned out I was the clown being exhibited. Tears started to fall again. Andrew took off his jacket and wrapped it around me, the scent of cedar and gunpowder isolating me from the commotion. "Let's go." He bent down and picked me up, ignoring James's shouting and Lily's curses, and strode toward the elevator. The macaron box in his arms pressed against my waist. The sickly sweet aroma mixed with his scent, suddenly bringing back the drunken night. He said I called him great, that I hugged him tight. Perhaps the body is more honest than the brain. As the elevator descended, I buried my face in his neck, listening to his steady heartbeat. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I mumbled. Andrew's chest vibrated, as if he were chuckling. "Back then, you only had eyes for James. I thought you truly liked him, the person. Turns out I was the one who pushed you toward him." He paused, his thumb rubbing the old scar on my palm, the one I got from falling out of a tree when I was little, the same time he carried me to the hospital. "But it's different now." The elevator doors opened. He carried me toward the parking garage. The moonlight stretched our shadows long. James's curses drifted faintly, like they were behind a sheet of glass. I suddenly recalled the cold touch of Andrew's military academy ring, the warmth of his thumb on my palm in the elevator, and his firm declaration that he wasn't good enough for you. Maybe it was time to let go of my obsession. "Andrew," I looked up, meeting his gaze. "Is the invitation from that night at the bar still valid?" His steps stopped abruptly. A flame instantly ignited in his deep brown eyes. "You tell me?" He lowered his head and kissed me, the coolness of the evening wind and the smell of minty smoke on his breath. "Just don't tell me you were drunk this time." Andrew brought me to his apartment. It was tidier than I expected. When he emerged from the bathroom, only a towel was wrapped around his waist. Water droplets ran down the grooves of his abs, forming small puddles on the floor. I blushed and looked away, pretending to study the books on his shelf, but a photo album with a gold-stamped cover caught my eye. "Don't look." He suddenly spoke, a rare hint of panic in his voice. But my fingers had already opened the cover. The first picture was my high school class photo. I was smiling goofily in the front row. As I flipped through, they were all photos of me falling during a track meet, me accepting an award at the arts festival, me sleeping on my desk. You took all of these?" I turned to face him, my throat tight. Andrew walked over and closed the album, his ear tips red like ripe cherries. "I collected them little by little," he explained in a low voice. "I was worried you'd think I was a creep if you found out." His phone rang at that inopportune moment, and James flashed on the screen. I instinctively hung up, only to receive a text from him. "I know Andrew told you, but I genuinely like you. Give me a chance to explain." Andrew's eyes instantly turned cold. "Don't contact him again." Then his tone softened immediately. "I'm sorry, I'm scared to lose you again." I stood on my tiptoes and kissed his chin, tasting the minty scent of his shower gel. "You won't." I put my phone on silent. Andrew and I always had a wonderful time together at night. We were physically close, but I still hadn't officially called him my boyfriend. Perhaps I still needed time to let go of the past. Andrew understood, and he simply stayed by my side, silently protecting me. To celebrate Andrew's return home, our friends organized a pool party at a villa. When I arrived, James was standing by the barbecue pit with Lily draped over him. She was wearing a bikini and showing off a bracelet, the diamond glare hurting my eyes. She clearly saw us, deliberately pressing closer to him, her fingernails tracing circles on James's chest. "Olivia," James suddenly put down the tongs and walked over. "Can we talk?" Before I could answer, Andrew subtly shifted, his left shoulder dropping slightly to form a natural barrier. His right hand hovered loosely behind my waist, 2 centimeters from my clothes, but it felt like an invisible wall. "Say whatever you have to say right here." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable authority. James's gaze flickered back and forth between us. He swallowed something hard. "Olivia, I know you're still mad at me. He took half a step closer. Andrew didn't budge, forcing James to stop. But Lily and I are just friends, James. I cut him off, finding my voice unnervingly calm, as if stating an irrelevant fact. We were never boyfriend and girlfriend. There's nothing to be mad about. James! What are you saying? Lily shrieked suddenly, clomping toward me in her heels. Are you the crazy woman who's been harassing James? She scoffed. You're just average looking. No wonder James dumped you. She deliberately shook her wrist, the diamond on her bracelet dazzling. See this? This is the gift James bought me. It's a limited edition. No way a regular friend gets something like this. Andrew's jawline tightened into a straight line. Apologize to her. Lily burst into hysterical laughter, patting Andrew's chest with the back of her hand. Who are you? Wearing a knockoff suit and thinking you can interfere? Do you know who my dad is? I could make sure you never work in New York again. Her wrist was suddenly gripped by Andrew, the pressure light but enough to instantly drain the color from her face. First, he stared into her eyes. Your fingernails are 3 centimeters from her face, which constitutes assault and battery. Second, he glanced at her bracelet. That brand's model is limited to 30 pieces worldwide, 28 of which are in Asia. The one on your wrist was seized as a fake on 5th Avenue last week. Third, he flashed his military ID. I am Captain Andrew from the National Guard, and I now suspect you of defamation and attempted battery. Stop your provocation immediately. Lily's shriek was cut short, like a strangled chicken. Marcus suddenly whistled, and the crowd by the pool erupted in laughter. Chloe raised her champagne glass to me in a toast and cheered. How does Andrew know so much about bracelets? Wait, is it because that brand belongs to his family? Even the waiters by the barbecue pit were trying to stifle their laughter. Lily glared at them, and they quickly looked down, but their shoulders were still shaking. James's face was the color of a bruised plum. He suddenly shoved Andrew and grabbed Lily. Let's go! Why waste time with these crazy people? Go? Andrew stepped sideways, blocking their path. You haven't answered her question yet. His gaze turned to me, questioning, giving me the choice. I took a deep breath and walked up to James. Years of obsession suddenly felt ridiculous. James, I looked him in the eye. The day I lost my wallet in sophomore year, did Andrew call you before you called me? And the times you walked me home in the rain, were you only doing it because he asked you to? James's pupils contracted sharply. He stumbled backward half a step and knocked over a champagne tower. Amidst the crash of shattering crystal, he frantically defended himself. No. It was my own, is that so? Andrew suddenly spoke, taking out his phone and playing a recording. This is a voicemail James left me last week when he was drunk. Have a listen. James's slurred voice came through the phone. Andrew, I regret it. I shouldn't have listened to you. Now she won't talk to me. Will you give her back to me? You told me to help look after her back then. Why did I actually go through with it? The whole place fell silent. James suddenly lunged at Andrew like a madman. You set me up. His fist didn't even touch Andrew before his arms were twisted behind his back and he was pinned to the ground, Andrew's knee planted on his back. The move was clean and textbook perfect. Assaulting an officer is a serious crime, James. Marcus and a few friends quickly rushed over to pull them apart. Chloe took the chance to drag me aside. See? I told you he was a jerk. She handed me a glass of champagne. Andrew is seriously hot, though. You too. I watched Andrew calmly release James and smooth the wrinkles out of his shirt cuff. The setting sun cast a golden edge on his sharp profile. He suddenly turned to look at me, and the moment our eyes met, the corner of his mouth curved in an almost imperceptible smile. On the drive home, Andrew kept the heater on high. I arrived half an hour early today and waited for you in the parking lot. When the traffic light turned red, he looked at me. I was worried you'd get lost again, like when we were kids. I suddenly remembered elementary school, when I stayed at school until dark looking for a lost paintbrush. Andrew, who was only a few years older, had walked me home using his cell phone flashlight. Back then, he also said, "Call me if you're ever out late." Rain started falling outside the car window, making a soft drumming sound on the glass. Maybe some acts of protection had truly been hidden for years. Andrew, I said softly. Next time, can we go out to dinner? Just the two of us. The light turned green. He started the car, a smile evident in his voice. It would be my pleasure. Andrew began pursuing me on his own terms. He remembered my nut allergy, expertly pointing out even the hidden peanut oil on menus. He prepared hot tea when I hadn't slept well. When I was pulling an all-nighter on design drafts, he'd show up downstairs with my favorite burger, remembering to order the fries without ketchup and wrapping them in neat foil squares. But I still hesitated. The memory of James's deceit was like a shadow, making me see a fake preserved flower when I looked at roses, and hear a carefully crafted script when I heard a compliment. It wasn't until a rainy night when I worked until dawn. Andrew came to pick me up and found the studio door lock was broken. He didn't say much, just pulled a toolbox from his trunk and fixed the lock cylinder in half an hour. Safety first, he wiped the grease from his hands. Never rely on someone else's security. What are you thinking? He suddenly asked, holding the old, replaced lock cylinder. I stared at his grease-stained fingers and suddenly asked, "Why are you so good to me?" He smiled. Amidst the low hum of the engine braking, his voice was gentle, "Because I like you. From 15 to 22, it's always been you." He leaned in, the cedar scent of his presence enveloping me. "Olivia, I know you've been hurt, but I'm not James. Will you give me a chance?" I didn't answer that night. But as he turned to leave, I suddenly pulled on his necklace, a military academy keepsake engraved with his name and number. The cool touch of the metal reminded me of a necklace he gave me years ago that I lost in the park lake. "Are you free tomorrow?" I heard myself say. "Let's go out for dinner." He froze for a moment, then burst into a smile, like a flower suddenly blooming in a desert. As I pushed open the restaurant door, the wind chimes jingled, and I paused. Wasn't this the Italian restaurant Andrew used to frequent before he went abroad? The warm yellow light shone on old photos on the wall. One of them was a group photo of me and some friends eating, with Andrew standing in the back row, his gaze cutting through the crowd and landing on me. "Do you like it?" Andrew put his hand on my shoulder from behind, a barely concealed nervousness in his voice. I turned and walked into his arms, inhaling the faint cedar scent of his suit. "How did you know I wanted to come here?" "Just a guess," he said, taking my hand and leading me to a window seat, his fingertips slightly trembling. The table was covered with an off-white cloth, with a small bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite flower, in the center. "You're acting a little weird today." Andrew scratched his head, his ear tips red. "Why don't you look at the menu first? They've brought back the truffle pasta. It tastes just like it did back then." Throughout the meal, he was unusually quiet. Usually, he was a man of few words but intense focus. Today, he kept checking his watch, his fingers tracing circles on the tablecloth. Several times, I tried to bring up the subject of confessing my feelings, but he cut me off with, "Try this," or "I remember you used to like that." When dessert arrived, I finally couldn't help but take his hand. "Andrew, I have something I want to say to you, wait a minute." He suddenly stood up and took an envelope from his pocket. "Look at this first." The envelope contained a stack of photos and notes. The first photo was a candid shot from my 15th birthday. I was holding the cake, smiling goofily. In the background, Andrew was holding the camera, a clear smile on his face. Flipping further, there were pages from his military academy diary. September 15th today she lost her student ID again. Got a passport photo while getting it reissued for her. So cute. November 22nd saw her post on Instagram about loving sunflowers. Going to order seeds from the flower shop tomorrow. February 14th she gave James a gift today. My heart hurts a little. But seeing her smile, it doesn't feel so bad. The last page had a faded movie ticket stub from Interstellar, which we watched together when we were kids. Next to it, written in ink, "When she's ready, I'll take her to see it again." The restaurant suddenly dimmed. Only our table was lit by a small lamp. Andrew stood up and took out a velvet box. Inside was a silver necklace with a miniature sunflower pendant. The back was engraved with my initials and a small phrase, "From 15 to forever." "Olivia," his voice trembled slightly. "I know you might have something to tell me today. But I've waited 7 years for this day, and I don't want to wait any longer." He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on me. "Asking James to look after you in high school was the biggest regret of my life. Watching you cry and laugh for him, while I could only watch from afar. It wasn't until I saw you crying outside that room that I knew I couldn't back down anymore." Tears blurred my vision. I choked, unable to speak. All the warmth I had once thought was coincidence was his long-planned, deliberate tenderness. So, he held up the sunflower necklace. Will you give me a chance to fill in these 7 blank years? Will you be my girlfriend? I threw myself into his arms, burying my face in his shoulder and tasting the saltiness on his shirt. This man, who never shed a tear on the training ground, was crying harder than I was. I pounded his back. You idiot, I sniffled. I was supposed to say that. Applause broke out in the restaurant. I realized Chloe and his friends were sitting nearby, recording the whole thing on their phones. Andrew put the necklace around my neck. The pendant rested right over my heart, pulsing with his steady heartbeat. Oh, right, he suddenly remembered something, pulling 2 movie tickets from his inner jacket pocket. Are you free tomorrow? Interstellar is having a re-release. Looking into the starlight in his eyes, I suddenly understood the best kind of love isn't about who speaks first, but about finally finding each other and holding hands at the right time. James showed up at our engagement party. He was drunk, his suit wrinkled like a dried pickle, his tie askew, and his hair greasy and matted. He charged straight toward our table and grabbed my wrist. Olivia, you can't marry him. You clearly love me. Andrew's reaction was lightning fast. He instantly shielded me, taking a standard defensive stance. James, mind your behavior. What about my behavior? James suddenly screamed. Andrew, don't think I don't know. If you hadn't asked me to look after her, she wouldn't have noticed me at all. Now you're back, and you want to steal her? Steal? Andrew laughed, his eyes cold as a winter night. James, honestly, what have you done for her in all those years? Besides using her family background to satisfy your vanity, what else? The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Even the waiters paused their pouring. Marcus spoke up, dude, enough already. You were the one who said you were only stringing her along because Olivia's family was rich. Chloe added, exactly, and you complained to us about her dad refusing to invest in your startup. Even Lily quietly stepped back, whispering to the person next to her, I broke up with him ages ago. Can't believe how tacky he is. James's face turned the color of a pig's liver. He suddenly swung a punch at Andrew, but Andrew's fighting skills were not for show. He sidestepped the punch and slammed James onto the table, his military boot pressing on his wrist. I'm warning you, stay away from my fiancé. Don't make me get serious. His eyes were as cold as if he were on a mission. James instantly backed down, muttering, you'll regret this. That night's spectacle became a joke in our social circle. Later, I heard James was fired from his company for poor performance and was deep in gambling debt. Once, I ran into him in the park. He was wearing a rumpled shirt and immediately looked down, pretending to check his phone when he saw me. What was more satisfying was when Andrew's military buddy told me James had tried to use connections to join their unit, but the superior officer immediately rejected the application, citing failure to meet moral and ethical standards. Recently, I heard he was disowned by his family business, and his social media accounts went dark, making him completely disappear from our circle. A few days ago, Chloe sent me a photo. She saw him handing out flyers in the subway, his suit elbow worn through. Our wedding was held in a church. As I walked down the aisle in my wedding dress, linked arm in arm with my father, I saw Andrew standing at the altar, his sharp suit making him look like a statue. When the organ played the wedding march, he suddenly winked at me, like a child caught eating a secret treat. His hand was shaking as we exchanged rings. The priest smiled and said, Andrew, you weren't this nervous during your vows. The whole room burst into laughter, and Andrew's ears turned bright red. Andrew, do you take Olivia to be your wife, to have and to hold, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part? I do. His voice was even steadier than when he took his military oath. When it was my turn, I looked at him and thought of the letters he wrote me from his base, the snacks he secretly slipped into my locker, and the way he guarded me all night on that hotel couch. 7 years, full circle, and we had finally found each other. I do. After the wedding, we went to an island for our honeymoon. Lying in the hotel's private pool, watching the sunset, Andrew suddenly said, actually, I heard more than you did outside that room. More of what? I asked curiously. James said he wanted me to know my little protégé was wrapped around his finger. Andrew squeezed my hand, the ring pressing into my skin. But he didn't know that from the first day of high school, the only person who could wrap me around their finger was you. The day our baby was born, Andrew was in the delivery room the entire time. When the nurse placed the wrinkled little bundle in my arms, the man who never cried on the training field cried harder than I did. He clumsily tried to hold the baby, positioning him as if he were holding a delicate instrument. The nurse laughed and taught him, "You need to support the head." "Yes, like you're holding a rifle. He looks like you," he choked out, gently touching the baby's nose with his fingertip. "His eyes are as beautiful as yours." I laughed and punched his arm lightly. "He looks like you." "He's so dramatic." On the day we were discharged, Andrew's mother brought over a shoebox, saying it was Andrew's treasure from school. I opened it and found it filled with things related to me: the hair tie I dropped on the playground, with a strand of grass still attached, the little pig I drew on his school uniform, which he had framed, with "Important Target" written next to it. What brought tears to my eyes was finding the wallet I lost in my junior year of high school. The student ID photo still showed me with silly pigtails. I looked at him in surprise. Andrew scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "Actually, I went to find you that day and picked up your wallet at the subway station. I meant to give it back, but James said," he paused. "He said if you knew I found the wallet, you wouldn't talk to him anymore." I was such a coward back then, I actually believed him. During my postpartum recovery, Andrew strictly prepared all my meals according to the diet plan, weighing ingredients to the exact gram. His notebook was detailed with protein, fat, and carb intake. "Nutrition is the foundation," he explained seriously. "Balanced meals are essential." Once, I casually mentioned wanting tacos from a spot near my high school. He immediately contacted the restaurant to air freight the sauce and even recreated the decor of that old bar, down to folding the napkins exactly as they did 7 years ago. On the baby's 1-month anniversary, Andrew's military friends all came to visit. Each one brought a commemorative tag engraved with the baby's name, calling it the future little soldier's ID. Watching those tough guys in uniform clumsily cooing at the crib, I suddenly felt that all the waiting and misunderstandings were meaningful in this moment. Last week, at a family dinner, Andrew's sister suddenly pulled out his high school sketch pad and pointed to the pages full of my profile. "You guys wouldn't believe it, this guy used to skip training just to draw Olivia." The whole family roared with laughter. Andrew blushed and tried to grab the pad, but his father held his shoulder. "Let me see how beautiful my daughter-in-law was when she was young." On our wedding anniversary, I came home to find the living room transformed into a miniature sandbox. Andrew used green moss to lay out the park's terrain, and small models spelled out "I love you." He even recreated the bench from our first date. "Applied topography," he introduced proudly. "The error is less than 5 centimeters." I leaned into Andrew's embrace, listening to his steady heartbeat and the baby's even breathing. The sunlight streamed through the window. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead, his gentle voice whispering in my ear, "Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for waiting for me all these years. The future is long, but as long as he is by my side, I have nothing to fear."